Great job.
Good job. All right. Well, I guess we'll get right to it since apparently everybody's got dinner and stuff on.
Sorry,
hold
dude.
on. No. We're all good. We're all good.
I gotta find you so I can pin.
This is the dinner meeting.
My apologies. I got stuck on the toilet. My remote stopped working while it was spraying.
Okay.
Well, wait, what?
We're recording. We're
Hey,
recording,
Jeff.
Jeff. Let's go.
We're recording.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Good job, Jeff. Posterity, buddy. Posterity.
Yeah.
Not posterior, posterity.
Oh, yeah.
But
All right, so we'll get into Article 6 today. Does anybody have any questions about 5 last week? Anything came up? Anybody sitting in bed, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, I know what I should ask them. Nothing. You guys got Article 5 down. Did anybody go and get registered with Convention of States?
Yes.
been there.
I know you
Done
have.
that.
Yes.
I registered a while
Already
ago.
was.
Are there any of you that saw it last week and went and got registered? Nobody?
No one?
There are. They just don't want to talk. Oh, there's Brad.
There's one.
There's Brad. Yeah, everybody's still shy. I mean, we're only like 3 months into this, so I could understand that why everybody's still shy. All right. All right. Well, I guess we'll get into Article 6 then. This one, I say this every week and then we get to talking, but Article 6 should go fairly quick. Debts, oaths, supremacy. It's only 3 clauses, so we'll get into it. Oh, first, this way I don't forget. See, I forget every week. So the flag behind me, made by Foxes Fired Up Flags and Furniture. Y'all hit him up. Make any size you want, and he's doing furniture now. So if you guys are looking at the what's Mike on here? If you guys are looking at, Mike's having connection issues.
Oh.
Yeah, Mike's always here. I was wondering why he wasn't here this week.
I heard it.
So yeah, flags any size, man. Is Wayne here right now?
Yes, he says he has no microphone tonight.
Wayne has no mic. All right. Well, I know he's making small flags, and the one behind me, you can see, is about 5 foot. So best flags out there for sure. So hit him up if you guys need one. So we'll get into Article 6. So what Article 6 says, we'll go through the whole thing like we always do, and then we're going to break it down into different clauses. I think I'm feeding back on somebody.
You are.
Tell you what, you just want to mute everybody and then we'll go from there. All right. So all debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. Clause 2, this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and shall be treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. Clause 3, the senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So, like everything else, it's a whole lot of words, a whole lot of semicolons, tough to follow sometimes, so let's break it down.
Very important words.
Very important words. So we'll get into the debt assumption first, which is clause 1. And what that says is that all debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. And obviously the Confederation, they're talking about the Articles of Confederation before we got modern day Constitution. So while they were talking about this, August 21st, 1787, there was a proposal brought before them. And what that proposal said was that the legislature of the U.S. shall have the power to fulfill the engagements which have been entered into by Congress, and to discharge as well the debts of the U.S. as the debts incurred by the several states during the late war for the common defense and general welfare. So this was how they were going to do this at first. This was the very first proposal that they came up with. And the biggest word in this thing that everybody had a problem with was shall. The U.S. shall have the power to fulfill the engagements. Problem was that Elbridge Gerry, along with a few others, objected to that wording because it gave Congress the power and not the obligation to pay back the Revolutionary War debts. They were worried that as things got kicked off here, that they were going to fall back and say, hey, look, this is a new government. We're going to choose not to pay these things. And they were going to leave all those soldiers, all those people that pulled out war bonds just out in the cold, and they weren't going to be able to get their money. So on August 25th, the convention changed the wording to an obligation. That power was split, if you remember back in Article 1, Section 8, for the authority that Congress has. It was split between that article and this one. So the authority to pay the debts in Article 1, Section 8, this is the obligation that they must uphold the debts and engagements. And if I keep this up, we're going to be done by about 8:12. So does anybody have anything?
Can you explain the difference in the wording?
As far as?
What is it? One was shall and the other was what?
Well, shall was the big word because there was no, there was nothing saying, it gave them the option if they wanted to do it. There was no obligation written. Hold on real quick. Let me go back. No obligation. They shall have the power to fulfill the engagements which have been entered in by Congress and to discharge all the debts and the debts incurred by several states during the late war. The way, well, I guess actually in the Constitution, it does say shall. Oh, no, it does not say shall. It does say shall, but it says they shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. The difference in the shalls is that the legislature shall have the power to fulfill. And that was Gerry's main concern with this, is that they were saying that the legislature shall have the power, but is not obliged to fulfill the engagements or the debts. So with the way that the wording changed here, it basically made it an obligation as far instead of a option. So there is no option now. And they did end up paying them all.
I was wondering something about this. I was thinking, like, when you were reading it, that I wonder if somebody who had a contract with the government before this got into this group to start this Constitution with this one in mind, going, we need to get this on there so I continue to get paid. Because it sounds like some government stuff right there, doesn't it?
Well, there were though, man. I mean, that's what they're, I think that's, you know, if you read that about Elbridge Gerry, I mean, that was his main concern, is that all these guys, all the soldiers weren't necessarily going to get paid from the Revolutionary War. You know, they had all pulled out.
Alexa, turn off the hall light.
Wayne,
Hello?
Somebody got something for Wayne?
No, he needed to mute. He got it.
Oh, all right. Yeah, just give me a second here. I'm just looking, I'm looking something up. Dave, you got anything?
Yeah, it's just, I think the interesting thing about this is that it gives us a snapshot into their minds. Remember that they were not originally called to create a new government. And they had to agree to write this Constitution. And the question becomes, is it the same government or not? Is it the same? Are the obligations the same? Are the debts the same? Are the arrangements the same? Because they weren't originally convened to write a whole new constitution, but that's what they ended up doing. So here we see them saying, one of the few times they mention the Confederation of States, that everything that was owed during the previous agreement is still valid. That's it.
And not only is it valid, but they're obliged to take care of it. They were not allowed to just discharge these debts and be done with it. And I don't know what I was looking for here. Whatever it is isn't jumping out at me now. But that was Jerry's big thing, was going to be the Revolutionary War soldiers. It's not so much, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of debts to other countries at that point. You know, it's not like now where all the money that they're getting, they're either printing or they're borrowing. Right. We were doing pretty good. You got to remember, we're coming off of Washington, who believed that we should be paying down, each generation should be paying down their own debts. So we weren't, it's not like we were borrowing money or going heavily into debt at that point. So this whole thing really stemmed around the Revolutionary War soldiers being able to cash in their bonds and to get their money back from the government. Anything else? All right. Moving on. So then we go into the supremacy clause here. And what the supremacy clause says is that this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So basically, in a nutshell, what this does is establish the Constitution law. It's a federal Constitution, federal laws, and the treaties of the United States is supreme. So the order from lowest to highest would be local laws. State laws can trump local laws. State constitutions, federal laws and treaties, and then ultimately the law of the land being the Constitution of the United States. And that's pretty much all that this clause is there for. However, it is kind of interesting. I don't know if well, here it is. The framers made the order on purpose. Nothing supersedes the Constitution, regardless of what some of the more progressive Supreme Court rulings have said. If you read it, this Constitution is first, and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof. So what they're saying is that no law can supersede the Constitution. No law can be in violation of the Constitution. And if there is such a law, that's where nullification would come in. Any law that is made that violates the Constitution is on its face invalid. Doesn't have to be followed. We've kind of gotten away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
we-
who
It would have to be
established
amended.
that?
Yeah. You would
What's
have to
that?
amend the Constitution to.
But that's all by interpretation. So you could have a law that violates the Constitution that is interpreted to not violate the Constitution by a certain group of SCOTUSes.
Correct.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, if you get a rogue group of SCOTUSes up there and they decide to make some sort of law, I mean, what do you, not law, but their rulings aren't in conjunction with the United States, with
Gay
the
marriage.
Constitution.
Gay marriage, right? They had no constitutional authority to rule the way they did. And yet now, because of the Supreme Court of the United States, it is binding on every single state in the country, regardless of what you believe about gay marriage. And, you know, that's always the first one that comes to my mind. But there's been plenty in the years past where, and you're absolutely right, it comes down to interpretation, and the Supreme Court's been tasked with that interpretation. So if you got yourself a progressive court in there and they rule that, you know, some law is in fact constitutional when clearly it's not. I had some case law here that I didn't think I was going to need, and now that we're talking about it, I feel like I will need it. Dave, you got anything?
Yeah, I do. I think if we back up for a minute, this this is a very significant point to acknowledge in the Constitution. And philosophically, it's significant because it represents the idea that there are laws that are supreme, regardless of what people say. Unlike a monarchy where which we came from, where whatever the king wanted to do, he could pretty much do it.
Mhm.
This idea philosophically is different, that there are rights, that there are laws, that there are things that exist that supersede anything else and cannot be replaced and should not be violated. So philosophically, in terms of governance, this is a huge turning point and a significant part of the Constitution. I feel this is a really important clause.
Anybody else? Because I can't find the rulings that I wanted to talk, or that I was going to bring up.
I mean, I think this is where we get into the issue of interpreting, like some of the court justices believe the Constitution is a living, breathing, changing document versus the word for word interpretation of it. And that's where we, like for your example, for the gay marriage ruling, they interpret it to be a living, breathing, changing with the times document.
And I guess that would be my question. Why would they change or interpret the Constitution in a way that is not in an originalist standpoint, instead amend it to, to kind of fall in line? I guess, I mean, times change.
Well, it's easier to
but-
interpret something than to.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, look what we did with, slavery and so forth. All those amendments came into play because we've really strongly felt that they should be changed. So what was that? Jim, your hand.
No, sometimes the focus gets off.
Yeah.
And, I got to get something up close to it in order for the
Yeah.
camera to focus on me.
So I guess that's where I struggle a little bit, because we don't want to change the Constitution very frequently, but at the same time, I don't think that we should be.
Though you're coming at it from an originalist standpoint, I think most of us here
Yeah.
are originalists. And the problem is that Supreme Court justices aren't robots, right? You would hope that they're all originalist, but they're not. We have progressive judges. We have liberal judges that lean that way. And I mean, in a perfect world, everybody would be an originalist. Everybody would, it's black and white. If the Constitution doesn't say it, then that's it. And if you want it changed, then we need to go through the amendment process. But when we get these activist courts and they're not standing up, and we're going to get into oaths here in a minute, when they're not standing up and taking their oath seriously, and they're doing things like the gay marriage ruling, where they're legislating from the bench and
Right.
they're allowed to get away with it.
Well, because there's nobody higher than them
Well, there's
to make a
not.
ruling. So, yeah.
There's not. But I guess Congress could act, right? I mean, Congress could. Congress are the lawmakers. But you never see Congress taking on the Supreme Court on any of these progressive rulings.
Yeah, and that's where I was just thinking, so for the gay marriage thing, right? So if the Congress got together and passed a law and said, hey, no, this isn't right, it's not in the Constitution, we're not going to do this, the Supreme Court seems like they would just back around and go, well, we've already ruled that this is constitutional and you have to
Right.
agree on it, and it's going to be this giant circle jerk, for lack of a better word, where nothing will ever get done.
They will use the word precedent.
Right.
Obviously, there's
What
different.
worries me is once they set a precedent, how hard is it to change that precedent then? I mean,
It's hard. I mean, when
Yeah,
we're
that's-
talking about criminal law, I mean, when I go to court, so many of our rulings and so many of our search and seizure rulings, and it's all based on precedent. And
Mhm.
once that precedent's there, and it's tough. It's tough to overturn that stuff.
Yep.
It's going to take another challenge and a conservative court, an originalist court, maybe like we have now, to revisit this. But you know, when you got the Democrats that are in, you know, running Congress and the executive, I mean, don't look for it anytime soon, right? Because this is part of their agenda. I mean, they're heavy on the social agenda. This is not going to be, first off, I don't think anybody there thinks that the gay marriage ruling was a bad ruling, right?
Right.
None of the liberals that are there now, you're not going to get them to, it's going to take us to take back the House, take back the Senate, get back in power, to bring that case back to the Supreme Court. And even then, there's no guarantees.
Mhm.
Supreme Court could let it stand. But not just that ruling. I mean, there's quite a few rulings that probably need to be looked at by originalist courts. And we finally have an originalist majority in there now, or so they claim. You know, that's always the problem too, right? I mean, you end up with these judges that run and are appointed as originalists, or at least as conservative. Roberts, who ends up siding with the more left-leaning judges more than he does siding with the Constitution.
Yeah.
So,
Well, did you see this week Merrick Garland going up
yeah,
for the AG? You know, person formerly nominated as a somewhat centrist Supreme Court nomination, and he
Mhm.
gets up there at the confirmation hearings for AG, and he's anything but centrist.
Mhm.
It's scary, the people they're nominating to these positions of high power and the activist side of it, not an originalist.
You know, I wonder though if he's answering the way that they want him to answer.
well, sure he is, but that's the
Of course he
problem,
is.
right?
He wants the job.
Exactly.
That's the problem. The oath doesn't mean anything anymore, right?
Yeah.
You're not swearing an oath to the Constitution. You're swearing an oath to your party, or you're
Mhm.
swearing an oath to whoever's in power.
Your boss.
That's the problem now,
I
right?
know.
I mean, it's just weird to me that there's ever this discussion about originalists on the court. I mean, that's supposed to be their job. Their job is to defend the Constitution.
Right.
And
They
when
all
you-
should be originalists.
yes,
It means there shouldn't be or there shouldn't be a slant in any direction. It should just be
it's just
originalists.
bizarre to me. You know, it's bizarre to me that you can't find a court that just rules in favor of the Constitution every single time and says, look, we agree with you, right? Gay marriage, sure, that should be something. Take it
Make
up in
an amendment.
Congress. Take it up
Make
in
an amendment.
Congress,
Yep.
right?
Make
Take it
an
up in
amendment.
Congress. Let's pass an amendment, whatever you want to do. But as it's written right now, nope.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know. It's
And
just
that's,
always,
and that's, I guess, why I think that, you know, it shouldn't be changed. There were so many things that were so important to our founders that I can't believe that they would go against some of these things and try to interpret them in a way that it's putting us backwards. You know, we're in a backwards direction, and
you know, there's,
it just bothers me. I'd rather
I-
see an originalist Supreme Court and then make the amendments for the things that really make sense. I mean,
Well, I think back when the Constitution was written, our representatives in the government were in the government representing us.
right.
And that's not the way it is now.
Good point.
So it's been turned on its head, and our representatives would prefer to punt to the Supreme Court than to
Mhm.
actually take a stand on something that may not be popular, but stands by the Constitution.
Well, now the Supreme Court will then take it and punt too, and not take on the case.
Yeah.
Right.
oh, they do. And, you know, well, we talked about that was it last week? No, not last week.
Might have been. We've talked about it a few times.
No, it was article, I think we're talking, where was it? 3?
Well, they just turned down taking the Pennsylvania case again.
Well, right. And we were talking about how many, maybe that was last week. I don't remember now, but we're talking about how many cases they get annually. And they only take
I see.
minuscule amounts of those cases. They kick them all right back down to the court, either trial courts or the appeals courts, and they let those rulings stand. You know, I was listening to somebody this week. I don't know if it was Shapiro or Wilcow. I don't remember. But one of them brought up a good point. And, you know, and I've always said when we talk about this is how the Supreme Court.
I've always said when we talk about this is how the Supreme Court.
I'm getting feedback again. But how the Supreme Court didn't take Pennsylvania because they figured it wasn't going to change the outcome of the election, right? That's what they were saying. It's not going to change the outcome. Well, what they were saying and made sense to me, like to the point that I can't even believe I thought anything different this whole time. I mean, this is literally their job, is to protect the Constitution. How much fraud are you allowed to have? Because that's basically what they're saying, is a little bit of fraud's okay. I mean, it seems to me that they should be taking on every single case, that Pennsylvania especially, right? Where the courts changed the election law instead of the legislature. And I don't understand for the life of me now why the Supreme Court won't take that case on, whether it changes it or not. I mean,
Because at this point, you're looking at the future.
Well, because
Okay.
it'll set precedent.
okay. I mean, this is supposed to be the court that doesn't care about all that,
court that doesn't care about all that.
right? This is supposed to be the court that doesn't care about precedent, doesn't care about what people think, doesn't care what Pennsylvania thinks or what the left thinks, or this is supposed to be the court that says, look, man, it's right here in Article 4, Section 4, that everybody is guaranteed a Republican form of government. And when you allow your judiciary to legislate from the bench instead of your legislative branch doing the legislating, then this is unconstitutional, and there's no way that this law stands, and they strike it down.
So the convention of states should have something added on to it that says that the American people should pick the cases that these guys got to take, and not just them, so they don't sit on their hands for all the stuff they don't want to deal with.
Well, how do you do that though? Because remember how many cases we're talking. I mean, depending on the number you see, it's like 11,000 cases have been brought, so, you know.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of times there are multiple cases. There might be half a dozen cases all related to the same issue, say gun control or something. I mean, that's a very popular one that goes up there, and they'll pass on 2 or 3 of them because they know the 4th one or the 5th one covers the first 3. They're all in, you know, they all have the same ideas in them, but this other one has got a couple more important constitutional questions, and they'll take that one. A lot of times they'll turn them down and say, oh, we've already answered that question in previous things, you know, previous cases. So they like to cherry pick their stuff.
But I can liken it to something like the UFC. The UFC has 1,000 fighters, and I want to see them all fight. But if you let the fans choose, or in this case, the American public, they're going to put the best ones up first and go, these ones for sure. Yeah. Here. And then it just kind of goes from there. Then all the bullshit stays back.
You know, I don't know if that's the way to go though, because we're talking about an originalist view of the Constitution, right? So all you're going to do is end up with half the country furthering the liberal agenda and the progressive movement, and half the country saying, nah, we want an originalist view of this. And so where are you going to get with that?
Yeah, true.
It drives me nuts because they don't want to rock the boat. Like Roberts, a few years ago, they brought up a court about abortion, and I can't remember if it was Texas or Louisiana. He votes and says this should happen. This law should be good, but they lost 5-4 because it was a liberal court then. Well, same case essentially 2 years later comes back in another state. It was Texas, Louisiana. I don't remember which one was which, but it comes back, and he now says, although I agreed with it then, because I voted that way last time and that stuck and it ended up being a no, I'm going to stick with that precedent, even though he voted the previous time to overturn. It's like, it was wrong. It was mishandled before, and now you don't want to move this forward because of precedent. No, you just,
That's exactly
you just
what
don't
he
want to
did.
rock the boat, man.
That's exactly what he did. He voted he voted against the majority in the first case. And he said that, he said basically they're wrong and this isn't the way it should be decided. And it came back up again. And he said, well, it's already been decided, so I have to go with the way it was decided last time, even though I didn't agree with it last time. Yeah.
Cop out. Cop
Where's your
out.
backbone? Where's your backbone, buddy?
Well, and I mean, and that's, you know, it seems like we're getting a little off here, but we're not. I mean, this is pretty clear to me. The Constitution over all else.
Yep, right.
And I don't understand why. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in the Pennsylvania case, their failure to take it up is setting a precedent for future elections.
Oh, sure.
Honestly,
I agree.
they're saying it's okay to commit fraud as long as it's not enough that's going to overturn the election. We're just going to ignore it.
Just a little bit of fraud.
Until the other side does it.
Yeah.
And how
And
does it
so
get
by
fixed?
not taking it up, they basically laid out that it's okay.
Well, they're
Right.
going to send it back to the states is what they're doing. They're not going to say it's okay. They're going to say, look, this isn't our issue. This is the state's issue to fix,
And
which
that may be exactly what they're saying. Yeah.
it is what they're saying. And to a point, I understand that it is up, you know, everything that was violated at the state level. But if the states aren't going to fix it, isn't this what the Supreme Court's for then?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I
You
know
would
they've turned down
think.
other cases in the past and sent them back down to the lower court and said, you guys need to look at this differently, you know, fix it. And said, we're not going to decide on it. And they sent it back. They'll chastise the lower court. But on this PA thing this week, I haven't heard anything as to why they turned it down. So maybe it's not out yet.
Clarence Thomas came out and chastised him for not taking it.
mhm.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
But
Okay.
I haven't heard what Roberts or Kavanaugh or Gorsuch or any of these other guys said as to why they didn't take it. But I heard Thomas's spiel on, you know, this is messed up.
Yeah, Thomas's dissent was scathing. I mean, it wasn't just a dissent of, yeah, I disagree with it. He actually called him out and said, this is wrong, flat out.
Interesting. I'll have to look it up. But I could easily see it going the way that Jim just said, where, okay, Thomas says we should decide this. This is what we're here for. And the other guy's saying we need to give Pennsylvania and their legislature and their courts a chance to straighten this out before we have to do it for them. You know, grow up and be a big boy and straighten out your, you know, business.
I guess my only,
Does
it would be nice for the Supreme Court to rule on it to when we're talking about precedent. I mean, basically, when the Supreme Court rules on something, this isn't going to be just binding to Pennsylvania. They would rule on this and it would cover all 50 states. I mean, they could fix what happened in Pennsylvania. They could make sure that doesn't happen in Ohio.
right.
If Ohio tried to do that, they would look back and say, look, Supreme Court has already said. But
Well, and the other thing too, if they try to push it back down to Pennsylvania, I mean, it's the judges in Pennsylvania that committed the violation of the Constitution to begin with. So who's going to make that? I mean, are they going to turn around and say, ooh, bad us?
Well,
No.
it would
Right.
have to be the legislature, because the legislature is the one who's, I mean, they're the
Right.
ones.
But I mean, what is their recourse? At this point, the legislature's recourse.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to all this. I mean, smarter people than me are going to have to fight this thing out. I mean, any normal person can look at it and know that what happened was wrong,
Right.
point to why it was wrong. But how Pennsylvania fixes this, like you said, I mean, the courts that are going to have to rule on, because it went to the Supreme Court. So the courts that are going to have to rule on this are going to be the same ones that did it.
Right.
So I don't know.
That's my point.
I do not know. Renee, tell her, this isn't a class. This is a discussion. Don't ask me. I don't know.
I'm just throwing it out there for you to
Oh,
ponder
you're
tonight when
right.
You're
You're
sleeping.
100% right.
Oh, you're right. You're 100% right.
All right. Well, moving on to oaths. The senators, representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. This is pretty self-explanatory. So the first part of this deals with the oath that they have to take, which, I mean, let's be honest, is an absolute joke now, right? I mean, the vast majority of these guys, I mean, they raise their right hand up high and let everybody see them taking this oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, and then they turn out to be the enemy 2 days later. Their oath that they have to take is, I, their name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Pretty self-explanatory.
Was the military oath similar to that?
Yeah, there's, Brad, do you have your oath there?
I think I have one here.
I think it's pretty much the same, Jim.
Well, it's pretty much, but I know I think it
Got it here. So
talks about taking, who he's taking the orders from, and
am I muted or am I good?
no, you're good.
Okay. So this officer will therefore carefully and diligently discharge the duties of the office to which appointed by doing and performing all manner of things thereunto belonging. And I do strictly charge and require those officers. Oh, this is a different thing.
That was your officer.
Yeah, it's a little different, but yeah, the officer and the enlisted one's a little different. But yeah, the enlisted one's pretty similar to that too.
I mean, all the oaths are pretty much the same. They all pretty much say the same thing. I've got mine here from the day that I got hired at the city of North Ridgeville. Says, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the State of Ohio, and the city charter and the city charter, and all the laws of the city of North Ridgeville. And I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of the office of patrolman of the city of North Ridgeville, Lorraine County, Ohio, to the best of my ability, as so I shall answer unto God. So they all pretty much say the same thing, right? They all are basically saying that you will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I guess it's just such a joke now. So many of them. I mean, don't care.
Is so help me God optional in those oaths like it is in the presidential thing?
You know what? I knew, because we're going to get into this here in a minute with religion, and I knew somebody's going to ask that. And I tried to find.
Question.
What's that?
It's not an argumentative question. It's
No,
just
I know, but I knew somebody was going to ask it, and I tried to find it today, as whether or not.
And it's okay if you don't know. I was just curious.
I don't know. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere as to whether or not. I feel like you can leave that sentence out. I mean, especially when we get into the religion.
Gotcha.
It's definitely still listed on the oath, but I don't see an option to take it out, but I also don't see anything where it's like, do this in place of, right? So I don't know. Because it says I do solemnly swear, and then in parentheses, you can say or affirm. But that last line, I'm not certain about.
Yeah. And I did. As soon as I read it, I'm like, somebody's going to ask. I know they're going to ask. And I looked and looked, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I was hoping nobody was going to ask. And then here you are.
You should have told me not to ask.
Somebody else.
Kelby, don't ask this question.
Hey, Jim, I got the oath for joining the military.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, I so-and-so do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. And that's it.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I thought. I knew there was a part in there about, doing basically what the president asks of you. And then your officers above you. Yeah, so they're all pretty much the same. And when's the last time you remember anybody getting booted out or for violating their oath? I mean, it's like they're just allowed to do it. Just,
I think Audie Murphy was still in the Army.
Yeah. I work at a middle school with his name on it.
Do you?
Yeah.
My favorite Western hero.
oh man, I read that oath, it just makes me sick.
Can I pipe in? Because my hand's been raised for like 5 minutes.
I don't even see Zoom right now. I'm using my thing. So go ahead, pipe in.
So just about an hour ago, I was sworn into the office of Republican Club as the vice president, and we did the oath. And it said, we will abide by the Constitution of the United States as well as the bylaws of the club. So I think it's all pretty much similar. They just changed the name to fit whatever the narrative, like city council, club member, Army, Navy, whatever.
I probably should have found some modern day, and I will find modern day examples right now of people that should probably be charged with, or at least thrown out of Congress. I mean, the list will be long, but I've got things off the top of my head, but I don't want to say them right now. Just, I don't know how right I am on those.
After party.
What's
I
that?
put the scanner on. There's some
After
people
party.
going on.
Yeah, well, after I could, I guess. We
Yeah,
could
well,
talk about it.
And I did find something on the oath as far as so help me God. It does say that it is no longer mandatory if the speaker has a personal or moral objection. That was there for a little while. In 2013, they made it mandatory again. And then in 2014, again, they removed it. So no longer mandatory again.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me, I guess, because we get into here where this clause also prohibits any religious test to hold office to further that, which furthers the separation. Article 6 referred to federal office holders until 1961, when the Supreme Court ruled that it applied to any public official or public office in the United States. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment made this basically moot. So the First Amendment with freedom of religion, and that the federal government can't require any religion. That's what the Establishment Clause is. But the last part of this is that no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So it's just weird to me that they would have "so help me God" in there when there is no religious test, because if you don't believe in God, so if you refuse to say "so help me God," then what? Then you're not allowed to take office according to the oath. Now, the oath is not actually, the oath is not in the Constitution, right? You got to go to United States Code for the oath. I think it's Title 5.
Title 5 for officers, Title 10 for enlisted.
I mean, well, for
Probably Title 5 for
government officials, I think it's Title 5, and I think it's 3331 is the section, if I remember right. I think it's Title 5, 3331 is going to cover the oaths. So while we talk about the oath, I mean, the oath is not in the Constitution. It just says that you have to take the oath. I guess they're allowed to figure out what that oath is going to say.
And Jim, if somebody did say, "so help me God," and they don't believe in God, then really the oath means absolutely nothing, doesn't it?
Well, you know what? The oath apparently means absolutely nothing anyway.
Oh, that's
right?
true.
You can swear that you're going to uphold and defend the Constitution. And you know what? And that's always, I mean, a lot of this has been a lot of the way the government works and the order that we do have is only because people accept that order, right? We've got people now that are just blowing this off, and there's no repercussions at all. No repercussions at all. If you are violating your oath on a daily basis. And I don't want to make this partisan.
He's muted.
Who was that?
We're all good.
All right. So, but yeah, I mean, this is a conversation we can have in the post for sure, where we get a little more freedom. But yeah, so that's that. Questions? I mean, that's basically it. That is basically Article 6. There's only 3 clauses. It's important, but you know, it's more important to me. When we started this thing, I wanted everybody to read every single word of the Constitution, so that at least once in your life, you can say, I have read the Constitution, every single word. And right now, all we have left is ratification. And basically, you've gotten the entire Constitution now. Ratification is just them accepting it. There's nothing binding in Article 7. And we're going to read Article 7. We're going to read every word of Article 7, but just so that when we're done with this, we can say we read every single word. But I mean, that's basically it. That is basically the Constitution. Now, obviously, we're going to get into the amendments to the Constitution, but this is the Constitution. 7 articles. Ratification doesn't have a whole lot of meat to it like Articles 1 through 6, but I mean, you guys have read the Constitution now for the most part. And this is why, I mean, it's 8:49 now. This is why I didn't want to get in Article 7. We'll just do them all, or we'll just do it next week. And then we'll get into the Bill of Rights on 2 weeks from now.
You know, I'd like to make a comment about the oath and not meaning something if it says God. I think a man's word, or a woman's word for that matter, is as good as that word is. You know, I just had a conversation about with my husband tonight about being able to make a gentleman's deal. My husband's word is his bond. You know, you could make a handshake deal with him and he'll honor it, you know, the way it used to be many years ago. But we know many people in our lives where you can't do that with. You can't always honor someone's word. So I think that in retrospect, thinking about, you know, whether or not that oath in entering an office or entering the service or whatever means something to someone, even if it says, so help me God, you know, I think that depends on that person's character, whether they believe in God or not.
Well, what's the main, what's the main point here? Are you focusing more on the God part of it?
Yeah, because even if a person doesn't believe in God and they say, so help me God, if they're saying an oath, if they're making an oath, you know, and you know, I know you've talked to yourself, you know, you're referenced Catholic on your dog tags, but you're not a Catholic person. And that's okay, but you
According to Joel Sargent Peterson, I was absolutely a Catholic. So
100% sure.
yeah, he told me that I am now a Catholic.
You and him. But that doesn't stop you from upholding the oath that you took to protect your country when you.
Okay, all right. I guess that's where I was. Right. Now, so help me God.
So help me God.
Are 4 words out of the entire oath, and if you don't believe in God, you don't. You know, I mean,
matter if you're a man of your word or a woman of your word. If you can if you're honest, I think that matters more than those 4 words at the end of your oath.
I think that one of the things too that's important though is those 4 words. The reason that they're included in things is because that is going to be when you're making an oath to God and you are making a promise to God and you violate that, if you truly are religious and you truly believe in God, then you should be very afraid that you are going to be answering for this broken promise that you made under God.
Agreed.
And, you know, and I think it was a mechanism that was put in there to give these people something to think about, right? Because if you don't believe in God, I guess, and you're making this oath, that you're swearing to God, they're just words, I guess, right? I mean,
That's that.
Regardless of whether
You're
you're
not
religious or
answering.
not.
You're not answering to a higher authority. You are answering to yourself at that point.
and everybody who entrusted
exactly
you
my
to
point.
Washington.
Yeah,
Well, I
but
mean-
the problem with that is that they were, obviously, I think there was a lot more power in the words, so help me God, one nation under God. I mean, now you're talking about the Pledge of Allegiance being what? Null and void
I'm
because
not talking
it
about the
says,
Pledge of Allegiance. I'm talking about 20 young men and women that might stand up at the MEP station in Cleveland tomorrow to protect our country. So help them God. Some of them believe in God and some of them don't.
Well,
And
here's my question is, okay, whether you believe in God or not, isn't taking that oath legally binding in a court of law?
But what's the,
I mean, if you violate the oath, I mean, technically, shouldn't you be like, persecuted or prosecuted?
either one?
Yeah, I mean,
yes, you should, Mike.
that's kind of my point. Whether it's, so help me God or not, it should be, if you violate your oath, you should be prosecuted.
Period.
Or shot.
Held accountable.
Right.
Then there's
Somehow
that.
held accountable.
But there's no ramifications for violating your oath in government, ever.
Really not anymore.
We just reelect them.
Right, we just reelect them.
DC,
And that's, and that's all, and that is my thing through this, right? Is just take a look. If you can find one instance that they violated their oath, because nobody's going to violate it one time, right? If you can find one instance, that's how they're doing business. And if they violated that oath one time, then there's no second chances. That is the ramification. The ramification is you're going to be removed from office. Now, I mean, you're still going to be getting your pension. You're still, because nobody has any backbone in the government.
She
Nobody's
likes
going to say, "Hey, look, you're violating the oath that you got elected.
Yep.
So therefore, we're going to remove you from office and we're going to take your pension away." Nobody's saying that, right? It's all disgusting. It is. It just absolutely disgusting.
But until you get someone in there who's going to hold people accountable, what do you do?
Well, nothing, but we haven't ever done that.
We're the people that have to hold them accountable.
What's that?
It's up to us. We are the people that have to
That's what
hold
I'm
them
saying.
accountable.
We've never tried this. Everybody wants
Right.
to bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch about this, but nobody's ever taken the steps. Everybody, you get all these people in the country that are talking about how they want another revolution. Well, have you taken the steps? When's the last time you voted in a primary? Have you taken the steps to get these people out of office and put people in there that are going to actually follow their oaths? that they
Right.
take, according to Article 6, right? The oaths that they take to defend the Constitution. We don't take those steps. We just keep electing the same people. Well, yeah.
Well, then on top of that, you have like oath keepers who are now being prosecuted for the whole thing with the Capitol, where they put that stigma on
Domestic terrorists.
Yes, you have the stigma that if you are an oath keeper, then now you are no longer a just human being, and there's a lot of
Right.
pushback on people who feel that way because they don't want to come out and say, "Oh yeah, you know what? I support keeping your oath," but now the whole quote unquote oath keepers organization is looked badly upon. Do I really want to be a part of that organization and be looked badly on just because I feel this way that they should be holding up their oath?
Yep, for sure. All right, so next week, we're going to get a ratification, Article 7, and then we will officially be done with the Constitution. And we will pick up the Bill of Rights and the amendments to the Constitution. But next week, we officially finish the Constitution as it was originally written. So you guys stuck it out, at least for the Constitution. Now you still got to stick it out for the amendments. But next week, man, you have officially read the Constitution. What this picture is pretty cool is New Hampshire. While they were debating ratifying the Constitution, New Hampshire was the 9th of 13 states. New Hampshire was the 9th state that voted, and that was the magic number they needed, 9 out of 13. So New Hampshire, once they voted, the Constitution became ratified. So good job, New Hampshire.
Why do the two guys on the right look like they're awfully friendly with each other?
Stop it. We're still recording. You have been completely out of line tonight.
Hey, for the record, I did jump in on time, so I am in attendance.
Well, that's great. I don't have anything to give away for next week, so thanks for being here.
No, I just want to make sure my attendance record still is.
Oh yeah. Okay, fine.
Tim, I got a gift card I can give you.
Who said
Not
that?
my outfit. Not my outfit card.
Oh, well, just scratch out Chris's name. Oh, Beast 83.
I'm gonna have a t-shirt to give away.
Oh, you know what? I've actually got some moonshine. I got some toasted marshmallow I can give away because Renee never came to pick it up. So
No, that was promised to me.
Nope.
I'll throw it up next
In
week.
fact, I'm pretty sure that the text message said if she doesn't come, or were we even on text? We may have been on here. If she doesn't come and get it.
I was working on my bathroom.
You got some nerve calling out people for not showing up when they're supposed to be someplace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Larkin.
You tell him, Dan.
hold on real quick. Hold on. There's nobody saying anything real quick. I just got to
Mute me. Go ahead.
no, mute everybody. So all of you can all be quiet now. There we go. First Amendment does not apply here. This is a Jim Tatership. So, all right. All right. So do we have anything else? Anybody have anything before we move on here, before we hit the road? Actually, we did pretty good. It's 9 o'clock on the dot. So Article 6 in the books. Article 1 through, well, tonight, right? You'll get it up tonight, Renee?
Yep.
On YouTube. So Articles 1 through 6. Article 1 was a wreck. Oh, you know what, man? I feel bad. I forgot Ella wanted to. I'm a horrible dad. You know what? She had volleyball tonight, though. Ella was sitting down here with me last night for probably 30 minutes, and she was actually reading the Constitution. She was going through Article 1, reading every single word. And at the end, I was basically doing what we're doing here. Is I would stop her and I'm like, well, what does this mean? And we'd go through and we talk about what it means. And she was going to come down here tonight and actually read Article 6, at least the text of it. I'll make sure I get her down here though. She's getting into it though, which makes me kind of happy. She could go either way. I got one conservative, I've got one liberal leaning, and Ella's going to be the one. She's going to be the tiebreaker. So gotta keep her in the originalist track. All right. Well, if nobody has questions then, Article 6 in the books, and we'll hit Article 7, which is ratification next week, and be done. And then we will jump into the amendments. We'll start with the First Amendment. We'll probably just spend a week on the First Amendment, a week on the Second Amendment. We'll probably spend about 6 minutes on the Third Amendment. Does anybody know what the Third Amendment is yet? Don't look.
Boarding soldiers.
Oh, yeah, I know you know. It is. That's a big one to Brad. It's a big one to Brad.
Right.
So,
He doesn't get to stay at anybody else's house
yeah,
now.
yeah. When the shit sets off, Brad's not allowed to just come over and kick in your door and move into
This
your.
is why my buddy slept in parking garages in DC.
That's right.
Thanks to the Third Amendment, Brad's buddies were all sleeping in the parking garage.
Abolish that. Let me in.
Brad, you can chocolate chip cookies.
I will see you guys here shortly. Mark, I know this is your first week here. So what happens now is if you go to the group page on
Everyday
Facebook,
Constitution page.
Renee's going to post another link. And what we do is after this, we go into, it's another Zoom call, but it is a post discussion and the rules are a lot more relaxed. This is where
We'll call that executive session.
our executive.
All the debauchery
Not
happens.
recorded. This is where the drinking starts. And really, you could talk about anything you want to talk about. So,
Everyday Constitution uncensored.
yeah, basically. Well, yeah, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So I will see you guys there.
And
Renee will
stopping
post
the
the link.
recording?
Yep. Go ahead and stop recording
good.
and then